In the snap Canadian federal parliamentary elections of April the 8th, 1963, leadership was a key issue. John Diefenbaker, who had almost 6 years earlier wrested power from the Liberals, promising the Canadian voters more decisive leadership, had in the years since, especially after his 1958 landslide victory, squandered much of that goodwill and trust because the Canadian economy hadn't improved even nearly as steadily and rapidly as he had promised, because he had had difficulties with his fellow progressive conservatives. He had lacked a lieutenant or a major political assistant in Quebec, because unfortunately he had the tendency to divide people into friends and enemies, and he had great difficulty forgiving anyone who had lost his confidence. And unfortunately, Léon Balsé, who was a prominent progressive conservative in Quebec, had been one of his opponents in the 1956 leadership election of the progressive conservatives, and therefore he decided not to use Balsé's services. The Liberals were able to capitalize on this issue after it emerged in early February 1963 that a group of cabinet ministers had confronted Diefenbaker. Only one of them, Defense Minister Douglas Harkness, however, had had the courage to resign. And then a vote of no confidence had been passed, which then had triggered these elections. During the election campaign, according to a biographer of Canadian Prime Ministers, Jim Watts, Diefenbaker claimed that everyone had been against him except the people. The votes were rather sharply divided regionally. The countryside, especially in Western Canada, still voted largely for the progressive conservatives. However, in the major urban areas, the Liberals were clearly ahead of the conservatives, and the result was a minority Liberal government under Lester Pearson. So let's look at the results more specifically. The total number of seats still remained at 265. The voter turnout rose marginally to 79.2%. The Liberals received a plurality of the popular vote with 41.5%, and or about 3,277,000 votes, and took 128 seats. The progressive conservatives were down sharply in the popular vote to 32.8%, or 2,592,000 votes, but did secure 95 seats. Because of their strength in the Canadian rural electoral districts, especially in Western Canada. The social creditors took 24 seats with 11.9% of the popular vote, or 941,000. The New Democrats took 13.2% of the popular vote, or 1,045,000 votes, and 17 seats. In addition to these major party candidates, one Liberal Labourite was elected.